is another live radio link up brought to you by the Government Communications GCIS.
It's a very good evening to you and welcome to this special broadcast which is brought to you by Government Communications and Information System. My name is Musoto Stone and welcome to the 4th season of Let's Talk Justice, Live Your Rights. It's a radio program brought to you by Department of Justice and Constitutional Development. As we know, the month of August, we commemorate Women's Month in South Africa, and government continues to work hard to promote and protect the rights of women. This year, the Women's Month is commemorated under the theme 100 Years of Albertina Sisulu, Women of Fortitude, Women United in Moving South Africa Forward. Tonight, we are discussing justice services for women, and probably by women and with women. And it would be very nice to actually get as many ladies, sisters, aunties, and everybody participating in tonight's program, as well as Luenantate, Baba, Umalume, my brother. You are also, because this also affects you, and this is not any exclusive program for one particular gender. And by the way, yesterday it was the total shutdown march, and scores of women dressed in black and a touch of red. They went to the union buildings, which they sent a memorandum which was received by the president himself, even though it was quite very late and the ladies were quite very impatient. But eventually he came through and he made some promises which we will talk about. And without any further ado, let me just welcome my guests. Jaga Kibuile Lina Ke Musoto Stone. I will be with you up until 5 minutes past 7. Welcome to it, and this is in partnership as well with the community radio stations in South Africa. I will be mentioning them. If you call from that particular province, you'll be lucky that I get to mention all the radio stations in that particular province. Anyway, welcome to my guests. First, Ke Mekamugelo Likubu Wilderson. She's responsible for victim support and specialized services. She's a director of that particular directorate. And then also we are joined by the chief director for the master of the High Court, Mme Teresia Bezuidenhout. Welcome, and thank you so very much once more. We are kickstarting this special program with Women's Month. And let's talk about, Oscar Mugelo, what the department so far. We know that over the years, you have been at the leadership of driving this campaign. We remember the 16 days of activism as well and all those kind of events. But let's talk about Women's Month this year. What are we up to?
Thank you very much, Msoto, and thank you for this opportunity to talk to our members of the public. This year is a special year because we are giving recognition to the struggle stalwart, Albertina Sisulu.
Yes.
Because she's one of the women that really fought during the struggle for our liberation.
Mm-hmm.
And the fight for our liberation was not only for liberation of black people to be able to get votes, but it was also for women to have a voice in this new democracy that we're having. So that's the significance of this particular year.
Yes.
We want women's voices to be heard. We want women's warm bodies to be represented in all spheres of governance, in public sector and in the private sector as well.
Mm-hmm.
So as people who were accorded human rights in South Africa, we expect that they be treated equally with all other citizens, meaning that males who are mostly holding positions of power and across all color lines.
Yes.
We want all women to have positions because, as you can imagine, we have the majority of women. Women. In South
Indeed,
Africa.
the class that I attended since all my 12 years of school, I don't remember any class that had more boys than girls.
Yes.
And it's still the same, right? Teresa from the master's office. It's true what I'm saying, right? Anywhere, everywhere, despite creed, color, and everywhere, because I believe you might have come from a different area where I come from. I come from Ramatlabama. You come from. So I would like to just maybe confirm that everywhere it has always been that way.
Yes, it has been so, and thank you for the opportunity for inviting us. The Masters being part of the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development, of course, though we are a branch that does total different work than what my colleague does, we do want to enhance the rights of women. Even in my environment, I'm currently called the acting chief master. So you will note that it's a it's a men's world and not a woman's world.
Yes.
Because what should I then by now be called? The acting chief mistress? I'm not sure. So yes, it's still a man's world out there, but women are in the majority. And just from the master's side, what we envisage, not only in this month but going forward, is to ensure that women in South Africa know their rights when it comes to whether their life partners, their husbands, their boyfriends, if they are in a customary marriage, what are their rights if their partners do sadly pass on? What can they do? What should they do? How can their interest, and in many, many instances, they have minor children. How are those rights of the minor children protected? And that is what we are trying at the Masters, especially with these outreaches, to show the community out there, and especially women, what are your rights? What do you need to do to protect the interest of the vulnerable?
All right, this is Let's Talk Justice. If you have just joined us, and my name is Mosotho Stone, we are talking services rendered on behalf of women or for women. And I am with Mekamogelo Lukubu Walderson, who is responsible for victim support and specialized services with the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development. I'm also with the Master of the High Court. She's the Chief Director, Meteresia Bezeden-Hout, which is also part of the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development. As we advertised earlier, we were supposed to be having Advocate Praise Kambule, but he's not going to join us due to other commitments that came before he was invited here. And also, you as a listener, you are invited to join us on 0800 142 446. 0800 142 446. It's a toll-free number. However, if you're using your cell phone, do speak to Nonhlanhla Ndawonde. She will be able to call you back. We've got enough airtime to cover everybody. Believe me, we got enough airtime to cover everybody. So call, leave your number, your name, and where you're calling from, and we will be definitely giving you a call to be part of this radio show. And thanks to all the radio stations in Western Cape, namely Zibonele, Worcester Radio, Elgin Radio, Radio 786, Radio Well Coast, Radio Eden, as well as Voice of the Cape, who are joining us tonight. I'll keep on mentioning all those radio stations that are in partnership with us tonight. And let's get into the real topic now, as we have already alluded what the department is doing. And but maybe let's get into the gist of things where we look at each and every service that is over there. We cannot be asking what is gender-based violence at this point in time in 2018. We should be actually saying what is wrong that we still have gender-based violence in our society. What is the research saying?
I'm not going to speak to research because it is clear that South Africa is having a huge problem with gender-based violence. And the most recent research study that we have gleaned is the Statistics South Africa research on gender-based violence that has actually confirmed that South Africa is the one country that has the highest forms of gender-based violence. So it's our own government department that has confirmed the status, and as a result, this government has the responsibility to ensure that that picture is turned around.
Yes.
And one of the issues that we need to talk about precisely during August month, we need to understand that this month is not only about gender-based violence, although gender-based violence is the predominant problem that we're dealing with. And it's out there because of its violent nature as well as the extent to which it affects people at emotional level. It traumatizes the psyche of our community to an extent where we say that South Africans do not feel free.
Yes.
And predominantly women do not feel safe or free. As a result of this violence, what happens? The significance of this month is that we're fighting for women's equality to men in society. And it's because of the stereotyped roles that we adhere to in a patriarchal society that we say women's roles are in the home and women have to dress in a particular way. There are certain things that we expect from women. So as a result, we find that as women are getting more and more aware of their rights and claiming their rights, there is a form of backlash. And I believe that gender-based violence is one typical form of backlash. There are various other forms of backlash.
That's right.
Harassment is another form of backlash. When women try to assert themselves within the working environment, it's not your normal violence that you will meet. You will meet subtle harassment that clearly says that you are not supposed to hold this position, and as a result, you will be shifted through indirect means where you are harassed
In other words,
at work.
yeah, in other words, it's not physical, but it is undermining, it is
Yes.
disrespectful,
Yes.
it is patronizing,
Yes.
in that line, right?
Yes.
Because I want our listener to actually get a sense that it's not all about bashing you with fists or kicking you with
Exactly.
giving you kicks and all that kind of stuff. It's also about, how about I give you a job and you like,
Yes. Either how about I give you a job and then in return you return sexual favors, or how about you shut up?
That's
and
why
not
I was
talk?
going.
Yes, yeah. The
I wanted
da-da-da
to
could
finish.
be to, there are certain roles that are ascribed to women. We say that women must be soft, they must not be abrasive, let me say. You must be, there's a certain vision of what a woman should be.
Yes.
But the minute you become assertive, then you're not seen as assertive, but you're seen as abrasive or da-da-da.
Yes, yes.
And as a result, you can be subtly marginalized, or other forms of real confrontational engagement start. And as a result, you find women not being up to taking on positions because as a result of this kind of emotional backlash, they would rather not be in those spaces. I want to also talk to what Tessie is going to be probably talking about.
All right.
Within the whole, you are not supposed to know what should happen economically to things that matter. You can have a look at, normal things that are ascribed to what a woman's salary does in the home. Your salary buys food, petrol, things that are not, really tangible. But the salary of a man will contribute towards a house, a car, or something
More
like that.
commodified than.
Hence, at the end of the lifetime of the partner, you might find that women are unable to actually manage the estate because they have not been empowered within that particular relationship on how to manage the hard estate matters. And I'll give it over to
No,
Tessie at
no,
this
you-
point.
That's right,
Yeah.
Tess.
You-
Maybe before you start,
Yes.
just to add on what you see, we are living in Africa, and it is important to uphold our culture and all those kind of. Please add that to it as well, because at the end of the day, somewhere somehow, this has something to do with the way we perceive our culture as African people, and versus the constitution that we have. How do we balance these things?
Yes, in my environment, it comes out quite often that exactly what my colleague said, that women are not empowered to deal with the estates. And when we talk of estates, it's not just if you pass on, it's while you're still living and contributing. You're given a certain pittance to do certain things, but you're never empowered to actually deal with the big estates, like can I buy a car? How do I get a life policy? How do I buy annuities? That is all often left for the husbands to do, or the life partners. Now, in our environment, what we also find is that especially in a matter where a lady was married to a husband, and they might have been divorced at some stage in their life, the family of the husband tend to take over. And especially if there's a brother or a elder sibling from another mother, then they just take charge of the whole estate, ignoring the rights of the woman who might have minor children with the deceased. They clearly ignore her rights, and sometimes we've often found they put the mother and the child out of the homestead. And this is wrong, and this is why we want to, with our outreach, show the woman what their rights are. So if your husband or your previous husband or your ex-husband passes on, you still have a claim against the estate. You can still claim maintenance for your minor child, and even if you were not divorced, then you as a surviving spouse have got a right to the whole estate. And people often don't understand that. They, in more customary engagements, they will say, but the estate should go to the eldest son or to the eldest brother, and he will deal with the estate as he deems fit. And this is not correct in terms of our constitution, and it's not correct in terms of our legislation. So we're trying with as many outreaches as we can to advise women what are their rights, and most importantly now in South Africa we're on a drive to explain that how important it is to have a will, so that you can pin down what you want must happen when you pass on, and especially for husbands or men, that they also have a will to clearly indicate who is a beneficiary of the estate, and not let it fall into unscrupulous other family members who divide the estate, and they forget that there are other minor children involved.
When you talk like that, I still feel like we have a very long way to go.
Yes.
In South Africa, we have a very long way to go. But let me just put that yardstick again in terms of the department, in terms of these things. We do have laws in place, but the implementation part of it, a lot of people are saying, the police from their side, they're saying, we apprehend these guys, we close them up, but pending the court case, and they get bail because they criminals have rights, and the perpetrator stays on the very same street that the victim stays in, and yet he gets paid. How do these things work? And let's just explain to somebody who actually does not work with these things on a daily basis.
Yes, I would say, sort of the biggest issue is that we need to understand that the victim is actually part of the state's case. If you are a victim, you need to have an understanding that there are certain rights that you are accorded in order for the state's case to succeed.
Yes.
As a witness within the community to any crime, you have the responsibility to actually make sure that you support the state's case in order to provide for evidence that will stick in court to get the perpetrators in jail.
Yes.
Now, often the biggest problem that we have is that there are attrition rate. When we say attrition rate, is that you find that there's a case, it has been put on the court roll, but when the victim comes to court, there are maybe their experience of the court environment is such that they end up saying that, no, this is not a place I want to be in. Because often it's a foreign environment, it's a very formal environment. It is also designed in a manner that it gives people understanding that we are now dealing with the law and the implementation of the law. So the environment on its own, it's designed in such a way that
Socially
it gives
uncomfortable.
It's prestige that here we are dealing with serious issues of governance. And therefore, we require to make sure that we introduce the victim to the court environment. And what the Department of Justice, through MPA, National Prosecuting Authority, has done,
Yes.
they have introduced what we call court preparation officers.
Yes.
They offer a program. This program is meant to make sure that victims are familiarized with the court environment. You would find that a victim does not understand that in court there's a certain way through which you have to sit, where you just have to be in court in order to give evidence. It's very important, because can you imagine if you go to court and you don't know that there's something called a witness stand,
Yes,
and
yes.
somebody says, witness so and so, go to the witness stand. If you don't know where it is, you come to court flustered, and that may throw you off in terms of your processing of evidence as you're going to be asked. So court preparation program is meant to familiarize the victim with the court environment, the court building, the courtroom, and the various role players that are in court. Secondly, it's also meant to enable you to understand the court process, because if you can look at court processes, you can almost liken it to a tennis court
Yes.
match, because then it's a time for the opponent to speak and time for the other person or the witness to give their part of evidence. There's time for cross-examination. All those factors, often if you are not familiarized with those factors, you might not be able to articulate your experience of a crime to a point that you are able to prove, you are able to support the state's case to prove beyond reasonable doubt. So these are the programs that we call victim support services that are now being introduced in court. We also have intermediary services that are offered to child witnesses. Child witnesses including victims if they are complainants in court. Intermediaries, enable the court to understand the child language and also for the child to understand the court languages.
All right.
And it goes further and further. We have services for the disabled. If you are a victim who is who cannot speak, we say deaf, or
Yes.
you cannot talk, then you are given a person who will be able to use sign languages. A sign language is a language that you use for those people who cannot speak or are deaf, so that they can also relay their evidence to court in the best possible way.
All right.
These are support services that are offered by the justice system at especially within the court environment.
All right, thank you. That is the voice of Oscar Mogelo Likubu Wilderson, talking about various support systems that are in place. And from the Master's Court, Master of the High Court, the intervention that, before I get to you, Tsepo, I recognize that you're on the line. But just before that, I would like Tessie to come through and put forward the interventions by the Master of the High Court. Where do you play a role, and how do people associate with the help that you're giving them?
Yes, thank you, Masutu. I think what we must understand is that the Master doesn't play such a big role in supporting victims or gender violence in that respect. What the Master does do, the services that the Master renders, is of course that we deal with deceased estates, insolvencies, which is of non-concern tonight.
Yes.
And then very important, the Master deals with the Guardians Fund. Now the Guardians Fund is a huge fund where if a person worked previously and they've got a pension benefit, if there's a minor child, then the government pension fund will pay into the money into the Guardians Fund. The same with deceased estate. If there's a minor child and no caregiver, then that money will be paid into the Guardians Fund, and the Master's officers then look after the interest of the minor child to see that the child can, when the caregiver or the guardian of the child feels it's necessary, to come and ask for maintenance for the minor child or to pay school fees or whatever the needs of the guardian is of the child.
Yes.
They will apply to the Guardians Fund. We've got 800,000 beneficiaries, all vulnerable minor children. So it's a huge impact that the department has on the rights of children. Most importantly, the services that we can in deceased estates, for us it's important to ensure that people know their rights. When a loved one passes on, do you inherit from an estate? Don't you? Are you a beneficiary? Are you not a beneficiary? When can you claim maintenance if there's minor children? When can you not? And those are the services for us in this month, which is very, very important to take out to the community to say, be aware of this. These are your rights.
Indeed, the voice of Sister Tessie Bezedenholt, and she's talking about, she's saying it's a minor intervention, but it's quite very important, because I am sitting here thinking, here dies this chief, this king, with 5 wives, and that's where you're going to have a headache, Tess. I'm
Yes.
telling you, because at the end of the day, there's tradition involved, there's culture involved, many of the things, there's no will. It was just, and in our own African culture is that the word of the king is the last word.
Yes.
The word of the dead person is the last word. So who are you as the court to come and tell us actually how to go about these things? And you find that there's 5 wives in that sense, like I'm saying, and then the first wife and the second and all that. There's those situations that come where some of the illegal things actually happen.
Yes.
But we will talk about that later on. Let's take a caller from Northwest, listening to Live FM. Abuti Tep. And you had to wait for me to call you and then you drop. Our batu. Yeah, anyway.
Yes, it's the master services are very important,
Very, very important.
because remember, we talk about rights of women, and that patriarchal society that we have, women are supposed to be caregivers, and we are in the predominance caregivers of children or even members of our families.
Even men themselves.
And members of our families,
Yes.
meaning that we
We
take
must
care
just
of the
put it
men.
out there, starkly clear like that. They take care of men.
Yes.
Within the families. But it is quite, a contradiction when it comes to estate. When the husband dies, then the rules change. No. Now it's the firstborn male who is supposed to carry out tasks that are related to caregiving. He has to hold the purse string. in order for the woman to access funds to do the caregiving function.
That's right.
So you see, the violation of women's rights come in that indirect way. Hence, predominantly, as Tessie has been saying, the predominant people who they come into contact with will be children and women, because by the nature of our patriarchal society, they are at a loss as to how to deal with the estate. Because if you are an empowered partner in a relationship, whether that's a traditional customary marriage or a religious marriage, you should be able to say, yes, we're getting married, but what type of a marriage do I want? What kind of, what do we call it, the proprietary consequences do I want to see from my marriage?
All right. Oscar Mogelo, let me cut you short over right there. I think we will continue. Tsepo, we.
Ntate Stone
Morena.
le kae ra?
Morena ka re tswile le kae na?
Ntate mana nka o utlwile mo masedinyaneng go ka go na le mathata.
Nnete. Ra go amogela mo Let's Talk Justice.
No, ke le mathata re Stone. Ntumise mme ka mogela le mme Teresi ya mo.
Okay. Greetings.
Hello.
Hi,
Mme ka
Tepo.
mogela.
Yes.
Ya leboga man.
Eh.
Ke le go le bomme maabane ke bone go bona getse gore ba kgona. Ba itse gore le ntse la bone le kgone go tlhagelela thata ya lamana le.
Yes.
Ka mogantwa bona maabane. Mara fela ba senya fela ka gore ba emela kgwedi ya August e fitlhetse. Le gone ba etsa nyalo. Ba dile ba etsa ska emela August, ba dile ba etsa yalo le mo gae ga jana.
Yes.
Ntho ya ga potsa ga ke ena mo go meteretse ya resto ke potso ya ka matla le problem ya usually ga le bomme ba babedi even though it's nya le taba ya selo ya manyalo because o mongwe ntse ga gangwe di estate tsa bona mara o mongwe na tsile a batla advice na go fitileng ya go rona le problem ya go o na le lekwalo nya go rona le lekwalo la go a ditsa ka eng o nyalwa like family tse di kopane go bo ga eng. And then
Customary marriage.
Okay.
Customary marriage.
Customary marriage, okay?
And then on the other side, ntate o busy ka divorce, so it's a great degree of divorce. And come on and o na le lekwalo le la customary marriage gore se di kopane go nyetsa. But now ha e tla go fitla mo go leng so. Go na le divorce ntate a ba tlhokafala. Mo ntonyo, ha di estate di di share le mo. Ntate o tlhokafetse before divorce la declare divorce on ntate e fetagala. Come on and o na le kwa la go o nyetse customary ka mona divorce le tsitse le di fele. Ya divorce. So no ha go tla go gagangwa ditho tsa sa tsetse. Ga go fetsa go diragetse yang especially at the meteresi ya go master of record.
Yes.
E se di gagangwa mo. Go fetsa go etsagala ya mo ke mo tsang.
You caught that test?
No.
Okay, we'll
I
get
think
that.
I will try to explain.
Thank you so much.
Tsepo is saying that in cases where a husband is married to one woman in customary marriage and another woman by civil marriage, but was in the process of divorce but died before the civil marriage was dissolved.
Yes.
What happens to the estate in those instances?
Yeah.
Because
Tepo,
it's
stay on the
dedicated
line
to
in case.
marriages.
Yeah, Tepo,
Yes.
stay on the line in case Metes wants to ask follow-up questions, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, it's good. Yes, Tepo, what you are asking is a very valid question. In terms of the civil union, and depending on how you were married with that specific wife, if it was in community of property, then of course the surviving spouse, if the decree of divorce was not granted, she will inherit the whole estate. The wife, in terms of the customary law, will have to lodge a claim against the estate. If it's a big estate, there will be an executor appointed. If it's not such a big estate, less than 250,000, then a representative will be appointed. But unfortunately, the customary wife will have to lodge a claim for her maintenance on her own behalf or on behalf of her children. but the wife married in civil union, she will in actual fact be able to inherit the whole estate. But very important, when there are claims lodged against an estate, all claims need to be paid. The master will decide whether this claim is a legitimate claim or not. If the master agrees that the maintenance claim is a legitimate claim, those claims must be paid first. Whatever is then left of the estate, that will only go to the surviving spouse.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Tsepone.
nka tsena mo temo.
Oh, tsena malome.
Okay. Now, got water in terms of Noah, the one who is married in civil marriage. He
Yes.
don't have any kids with her. But the one who are in customary marriage, they do have
They have kids.
Because
Yeah.
This one,
Yeah.
they do have 2 kids. That one, who they were in process of divorce. They don't have any kids. It's only they were in
Yeah.
process of divorce. They don't have any kids. But this one, they do have kids.
Yeah. Yes, Chepu, unfortunately, it doesn't matter whether there are kids on the side of the wife married civilly. She's married to the person, and therefore, in terms of the law, she does inherit the estate. That is why I'm saying the wife, the customary wife who has minor children, she must lodge a maintenance claim against the estate so that her children's rights are protected.
All right, Morena Tsepo, ke lebogile thata le tota Morenaka. Keep listening to the program.
No, ke lebogile thata bagolo.
Thank you, Malo.
Thank you, Chepu.
All right, thank you so very much. Life FM is based in Northwest in Klerksdorp, along in partnership with Mahikeng FM as well as Akhanang FM, Moretele FM, Mabatu FM, Mudiri FM, Bokoni Bupirima FM, Ratlou. Yes, those are the Northwest radio stations that are in partnership with us. Let's take one more caller. It's GPS. GPS is calling from Pumalanga, listening to Voice of Hope. Hello, GPS.
Msuthu, good evening. Ngibingelele ke ngubingelele kuwe nama-guest wakho. Msuthu,
Sawubona baba.
ngiyaphila baze ngifona from Mbombela.
All right.
Ngifuna ukubuza ukuthi how do you assist women from rural areas where you find ukuthi uhlala nobaba wakhe lo baba usebenza mhlambe from eGauteng usebenza eGauteng noma kuphi ahlale for years noma akabuka lekhaya, then when the man passes on, like the family bese ukuthi it's the woman who killed the husband, then bamxosha la lekhaya, because for me it's a gross violation of women's rights, because in terms of inheriting le tindo talo baba sebamxosha because of bona sebafuna ukuthi inherit, and how to assist that, because abomama ke abahlala ema rural areas, they are not aware of these things. How do you assist?
All right, sir.
Yes, I think hi,
Okay.
sir. I think-
Maybe for the benefit
Yeah.
of all the listeners as well. GPS is talking about how do you assist women in the rural areas, the outreach program to rural, because it looks like most beneficiaries of these services are based in Gauteng, in the cities and all that. Particularly, he highlights one point where he says, in an instance where the lady, maybe during the fight or something, he killed the man, and then the family is against that particular woman to say, you're not involved with us, you're no longer with us, like he's making that situation as an example.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Msutu. I'm going to first address the reach out to the rural areas. This is a big drive of the master for this year, to have a lot of outreaches to rural areas together with all our regional offices. There are 15 masters offices countrywide, and we are really going on a drive to take our services to rural communities and to educate on their rights. Now, in terms of estates, very quickly, I'll just explain to you. If an estate is less than 50,000, that estate can be reported at any magistrate's office. Oh, I think we
Oops.
lost him.
No, it's okay. You can just go.
All right. I'm sure you will still listen. So, if an estate is less than 50,000, that estate can be reported at any magistrate's office, who will then assist. If in certain magistrates' offices we've rolled out a system we call Peace, then you can report an estate which is 250,000 Rand, And if it's larger than that, then you need to go into one of the master's offices. But at any of the magistrates' offices, there are estate clerks that can assist and guide you on where to properly report your estate. Now, in terms of the scenario where the wife might have killed the husband, if it's proven and she's found guilty, then that wife has got no claim to any of the assets in the estate. Our law comes from the Roman Dutch law, and the saying that we use in Afrikaans is het bloedige hand erft niet. So that means the one that has got blood on the hand is not allowed to be a beneficiary at all.
Yes.
So quite correctly so, if she's found guilty, then the family can say, who's ever in terms of the Interstate Succession Act, or if there was a will, to say, sorry lady, you're going to jail, you've got no say, and they will then administer the estate in terms of the act.
All right, 0800 142 446, 0800 142 446. It's a toll-free number if you're using a Telkom landline. However, you can call that number using your cell phone, and we will definitely call you back. Let's go to callers again, and from Soweto, Pimville, we're speaking to Priscilla. Hello, Pris.
Hello.
Legai. All right, Priscilla, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Bualero
Can
Nami.
you hear me?
Yes, talk to us.
My question is, I was married and my husband died. And where we were staying, it was his grandmother's house. And then he became the owner of the house because we went to housing and then they signed the papers and everything, and he became the executor of the house. The day before he died, I was with him, and at that time, we were divorced already. But then we had an agreement. He asked me to bring the paper to hospital. When I got there, unfortunately, long story short, he wrote on the agreement, on my agreement of my copy of the divorce, that the house must, if something happens to him, me and the children must get it. But he died the next morning. So I only had like 5 hours speaking to him, and he died after that. The next morning, his family found out he died at hospital. They buried him, no death certificate. It's like we were cut off 100% until as I'm speaking to you guys right now. There's a lot of sex around the house, Somalian shop. They don't even buy bread for my son that's at school, and I'm not working.
All right, thank you, Priscilla. Yes, it's a difficult.
Stay on the line, Priscilla.
It's a difficult situation that you are in. The fact of the matter is, you say you were divorced, although on your copy your husband might have written that you should get the house. That in terms,
on the agreement that we had.
But in terms of the Wills Act, that is not a properly constituted will, and in all eventuality, I don't think the master will approve that. However, there are a lot of facts around your case which one needs to look into. As I said to a previous caller, you've got minor children, so therefore
Yes,
you
I
do
have 4 children with him,
from
and he has
him.
one child.
All right.
He has another child that's like 3 years old
All right,
now.
but with your in your position and your 4 children, you do have a claim against the estate. But it's difficult for me, if I haven't seen the agreement, to see how it was written, to really make a ruling on that. But what I can say to you is that you must ensure that your late husband's death was definitely reported at the master's office, and then we can try and assist you when we look into the estate and who was appointed as a representative. What have they done with the assets? What have they done with the money? And to ensure that you can, put in a maintenance claim for your minor children.
Okay. Also, where can I go to in Johannesburg?
You know where you
Do
can.
I go straight to the Supreme Court? Or do I go to the...
No, you don't need to. You can go in Soweto at Protea Court. We've got a sub office in the Protea Court. The person heading that office is Bernard Apana. And
Havana.
Apana.
Aphana.
That's right. You can go to him and you can even say to him that you spoke to me on this radio station and that you need assistance, and he will try and assist you as best as he can. But we do need to get all the facts before we can, really say what the status of the estate should be.
No problem. Thank you very much.
All right.
In the dark, what the Thank you very much. Have a blessed evening, both of you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, Priscilla. All right.
Thanks, Priscilla.
Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Thanks so much,
Priscilla.
Tess, for that. And if you have just joined us, I am joined by Teresia Bezerenholt. She works for the Master of the High Court within the DOJ and CD. And also Oscar Mugelo Likubu Wilderson. She's responsible for victim support and specialized services. Oscar Mugelo, I want you to continue with the outreach program that
Yes.
Mrs. Tess was talking about in terms of the Tutuzela centers. Please tell us a little bit about that, because for me it's quite very important for people to know where to get this help, even if it might not be relevant for what they're asking for, but at least it's a start.
Yes, you're talking to issues of access.
Yes.
Access to justice is very important. And we have a program through which we ensure that we reach people in rural communities. Now, in the areas of gender-based violence, which includes sexual offenses, domestic violence, and trafficking in persons, we actually work with traditional leaders to educate them about the law and what steps to take in case a victim from their area where they are managing or administering the area,
Yes.
what steps should they take? So we've got outreaches called Ndabezita program that is done. And within the Ndabezita program, there's an emerging program that is called, it's led by women traditional leaders or wives of traditional leaders, and they help victims with domestic violence, sexual offenses, all forms of gender-based
That's
violence.
right.
So we equip the traditional leaders and their wives on how to manage these cases. In addition to outreaches, we've got specialized programs that are aimed at making sure that victims are made comfortable to go through the long way of with us in the court process. And we've got Tutuzela care centers. So if you are a victim, you can go to the police station or go to the nearest Tutuzela care center.
Yes.
They are not available all over, but in areas where they are, if the Tutuzela care center is nearest than the police station, go to the Tutuzela care center. There you'll have a holistic service being provided to you.
Even launch a case?
Yes, you can lodge a case. The coordinator of the Tutuzela Care Center will either call a police official or there will be a police official stationed there to take cases. So we make life easier to make sure that there's one-stop service. We will call on the nurse or the doctor to do the forensic medical evidence, to take the swabs and all that. So you get a service within one center. We also trying to use the same model with sexual offenses cases, because in sexual offenses we have intermediaries, court preparation officers, and prosecutors located in the same vicinity, so that when you go to court, you just go to one section to be dealt with or to be given support in respect of your case.
All right. So, thanks, Oscar Mugelo. Sorry to cut you short, but we also need to be talking and interacting with our listeners
Yes.
as well. Just first, GPS feels we didn't understand him. Basically, sorry about that, GPS. He says the wife didn't kill the husband, but he got sick and died. But the husband's family is accusing her of taking away the estate. What are her rights in that? Let me mix it with this one. You will see how you get to. A Facebook question is from Terence Bruno Mukhasi, is saying, I just wanted to know, what must I do in order to have a custody of a child as her mother is staying with another guy? And those are 2 questions. But anyway, before you get to ask that, as I'm seeing the time is almost over, let's talk to Thabo first from Zebediela. Thabo? Thabo! Morana Thabo, man, o re bolaisa ditsebe wena man. O violate di rights tsa ditsebe tsa rena kre. Welcome Thabo.
le nna ke thabela go tsena ke re go bomme ka moka happy women's month.
Ehe.
Ra leboga Thabo.
Hello, Thabo.
Alright. Nna ke bo services ke le bolang ka tsona ke le gore mmuso le ona wa di offera tsona le go di protection order go basadi gore ba tshireletse go mo di abusing a
Ja.
but ya go ba master's officer ke re Miss Bezenheit
Miss Bezuidenhout.
Yeah, Bezuidenheit.
No master of pronunciation, only master of court here. More.
In a protection order, are too comfortable. People are becoming too comfortable on the protection order. We no longer get prosecution of the abuse. Imagine when someone is being beaten brutally, and the advice the police can give them is just to say to that person, can you open a protection order that this guy does not beat you again? You see where the problem lies. He does not beat you again. If he does, we will arrest him. And no prosecution there.
Okay.
That's the argument I'm putting forward.
Yes. Abu Thabo, I hear what you're saying. Basically, you are saying that the police are pushing people to lodge protection order rather than lodge cases immediately. You have 2 options, ne? If you are a partner who is abused, you can either follow the domestic violence protection order route or lodge a complaint in terms of Criminal Procedure Act. It's the victim has the right to choose either of the 2. However, I would suggest that you lodge both. There is nothing in the law that prohibits anyone from asking for a protection order and lodging a criminal case at the same time. So I would encourage victims of domestic violence or any form of violence to lodge both domestic violence protection order, ask for domestic violence protection order, as well as pursue the case criminally and say that I want this person to be charged under criminal law for assault or assault GBH or any form of assault that they would have experienced.
I think it's not stated around where we are staying, or you can open also those kind of cases. But that's what I'm seeing on daily basis, just protection order, and then he won't touch you again. Maybe that person, they don't stay with that person. Maybe they just see each other sometimes. You see.
One is staying in another section
apart.
And the other one is staying in another section. They're staying apart.
Protection order maybe is the best part. They won't come to your house to visit you.
Yes, as we are saying, we are saying that in terms of the law, the victim has the right to lodge both. And we will look at whether, the tendency for the police to promote one action, which is civil. Protection order is a civil action.
Yes.
Whereas lodging criminally is a criminal case. So people should be given options, and an option means you are told about both the civil route and the criminal route.
Yes.
And we'll look at it in the intersectoral committees that we have in order to make sure that victims know the entirety of the rights that they have.
Okay, thank you very much on that one.
Thank you, Morena Tabo. Re leboga gagolo, re leboga kudu ka mat. Morena. That's from Zebediela FM, and it's also joined in Limpopo by Turf, Radio Turf, as well as Greater Leboago, Makado FM, Mohodi FM, as well as Muleji FM.
The Facebook question again.
The Facebook question, let me just, they'll bring it again because it just slipped. But let's correct the GPS question as well, where he says the wife didn't kill the husband, as we were trying to put it, but he got sick and died. But now the husband's family is accusing her
Of taking the whole estate.
taking everything.
Yes.
And what are her rights in that level?
It's difficult if we don't have all the facts to us. Very important it's to know exactly how the parties were married. Were they married by way of customary? Were they married by civil union? If it was civil union, were they married in community of property, out of community of property? It sounds to me that there was no will, and that is why the family and the surviving spouse might be fighting. So it's difficult if we don't have all the facts. As I've stated before, if they were married by way of civil union and they were married in community of property, then the surviving spouse is the sole beneficiary, she and her children. If not, then the family should go to the master's office and indicate how they were married, and if they dispute the marriage, they should indicate so that the master can have a meeting with the family to ascertain who should be the beneficiaries and who should take control of the assets or not. That is also, let me quickly state, a function that can be done at the master's office.
Yes.
Where there's fight between families, they should go to the master's office and ask for a family meeting so that the master can try and ascertain all the facts and make a ruling on who should be appointed as representative or executor. The person might contact me to give me all the details, and I'm quite willing to assist.
All right, thank you so much. Quickly before we get to the Facebook one, Auskamkhel, let me just take Franz, our last caller, and then you can take it along with the Facebook question. Franz?
Hello.
Ke kopa re direle ka pejana malome nako e ka moshi.
All right, le bona le Frans mo Limpopo ke na le problem ya ngwana. Batswadi ba ba tlhokofetse ka moka. O kwa o ntshitse ngwana o mongwe so wa madi ka montsi a nyetsile a nyetse ke papae semolao. Ngwana o tsamaya ko ntle di social worker di tsene ta ba ta tsena ngwana o ko ntle o shetse ba ratho ba hae o kwa o mokubile o thuang ka ntse.
Morenaka, ke lebogile thata. While you can go on Auskamkhelo, but let me just give you this one as well so that you can cluster them together.
Yes.
Terence Mukhasi is saying, I just wanted to know what must I do in order to have a custody of a child as her mother is staying with another guy. This sounds like a guy, but for me, I would really say we are going to have that series of child maintenance and all that. So can I just on behalf say...
I could say briefly that you got to apply for custody in court, and you can start your first point of entry can be with the family advocate in your area, where they will determine the best interest of the child, because it does not mean that if the mother is staying with the boyfriend, it is not in the best interest of the child to stay with the mother. The family advocate will, through their counselors, assess the situation and write a report through which that report will be lodged in court for custody application that he will put forward.
All right. Thank you so much.
So that's how we would, as Department of Justice, provide support through family advocate.
All right.
And
then France?
The question from France, he says that the parents of a child passed away, and the grandmother just basically checked out one of the children from the common home. So this child is homeless as a result. What should be done?
Yes, this is also one of the issues, Frans, that is very difficult when it comes to customary laws and customary traditions. And that is why it's so important for people to have a will, to clearly indicate that if parents pass on, what must happen. But because it's a common home, it's not fair for the grandmother to do that. And I would suggest that whoever is the caregiver of that child, contact the master's office. I forgot what area Frans is from.
From Limpopo.
From Limpopo,
Yes.
you can go to the master's office in Polokwane and explain to them exactly what has happened, especially if it's a minor child, so that they can assist you. If it's a minor child and his rights are being infringed, what the masters will do is they will refer the case to legal aid, so that legal aid can assist the child, and if needs be, to take action against the grandmother if she wrongly threw the child out of the common home. So the masters also work closely together with legal aid, and we will refer matters to legal aid to assist free of charge in instances where rights are being trampled on.
All right.
I think the final thing that I would like to say is to say that customary marriages are recognized in South Africa as legitimate marriages. And what is important is that as soon as you're married by customary law, you should register your marriage at your local magistrate's court, and that will be given formal recognition. But everything that Tessie has said, follow that advice in order to deal with the estates properly.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Oscar Mugelo, Teresia, thank you so very much. This is the beginning of things. This is a series of programs that we will be working with Community Radio on. And some of the questions might not be relevant to what we were talking to today, but they are as much important as the others. And keep listening to your radio station for all the topics that we will be talking about. People ended up making this more about child maintenance and beneficiaries, and we will definitely get that master of the court program as we did last time in another season, and we'll be able to thresh out. I see there's quite a lot of information on this script, Oscar Mugelo, but let's save it for next time as well. So that, and thank you so much. This is very much appreciated, and keep shining. What is the website for your department where people can just see different things? It's www.justice.gov.za. Thank you so very much.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
very
Thank you for
much.
having us.
All right, there you have it. And we are here next week. Next week, we won't be here on Thursday. It will be a special day on Thursday, which is the 9th of August. It's Women's Day, and it's a holiday. So we will be doing this on the 8th of August, which is Wednesday. So keep listening to your radio station. And this is Let's Talk Justice. My name is Mosotho Stone. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.